My mom demanded I quit my elite school and give up my scholarship. When I refused, she sabotaged my future, until my cold move made her smile disappear. My name is Eric Callahan. I'm 17 years old, a senior at Northbridge Academy, one of those schools people whisper about when they talk about future senators and Wall Street prodigies. I'm captain of the debate team, ranked near the top of my class, and already knee-deep in Ivy League applications. On paper, it looks like everything's falling into place. But my life stopped being simple a long time ago. I grew up in a small town 2 hours from Boston. My parents divorced when I was 12. My dad, Connor, works in finance and lives in the city. My mom, Maya, stayed behind, remarried a man named Greg, and had 2 daughters. They're 9 and 11 now, my half-sisters. I split my time between both homes at first, but things changed when I was 14. That was the year I won the Northbridge Scholars Award, a full-ride package to the best prep school in the state. It was merit-based, but Northbridge also factored in financial need to determine who got the complete package versus partial tuition. I disclosed everything during the application: divorced parents, split custody, my dad's income versus my mom's household. The combination of my test scores and our financial situation tipped me into the full scholarship category, instead of just partial tuition coverage. It was the result of months of grinding debate tournaments every weekend, summer programs I saved for by shelving books at the library, and hours of tutoring sessions I ran for younger kids. When the acceptance email came in, I remember Connor hugging me so hard I couldn't breathe. He said it was the start of everything. Maya's reaction was a flat, "Good job," followed by a comment about how I shouldn't let it go to my head. At the time, I thought she was just surprised. I didn't realize that moment would redraw every line in our family. Things shifted quickly after that. Maya started calling me City Boy, sometimes Harvard Boy, like it was a punchline. Greg liked to say that real men learn trades and that books don't build houses. Even my sisters picked it up, calling me professor every time I tried to help them with homework. It wasn't teasing, it was ridicule, and it built a wall between us brick by brick. Around the same time, I met Liam. He was another scholarship student, son of a postal worker, sharp as hell and just as out of place among Northbridge's billionaire kids as I was. We clicked fast. He became my closest friend, the kind who'd call me out when I was overthinking and keep me grounded when things got heavy. His family treated me like one of their own, and more than once I spent holiday breaks at his house instead of going back to mine. The resentment at home didn't stay subtle for long. Maya forgot to pick me up from the bus station my first Thanksgiving break. I stood outside for 3 hours before Connor drove 2 hours to get me. When I visited, she handed me chore lists while my sisters played video games. "Everyone contributes here," she said. Greg didn't hide his disdain. "Debate team? Sounds like you're training to argue with people who do real work." When I brought home my first state championship plaque, Maya looked at it once and said, "Can that trophy pay rent?" I stopped showing her awards after that. By 17, visits were rare. I'd sleep at Liam's place during most breaks. Maya's comments got sharper, her tone colder. The warmth that used to exist was gone, replaced by simmering resentment. Liam noticed it before I did. "They don't hate you," he said once. "They hate what you've become." Still, I kept my head down. I poured everything into school: advanced debate circuits, early admission essays, and a mentorship program that had me shadowing a policy consultant on weekends. I told myself that if I just pushed forward, the noise would fade behind me. But deep down, I knew the truth. Spring break was supposed to be a few quiet days at home before debate nationals, but Maya had other plans. The moment I walked in the door, she told me to clear my schedule because there was going to be a family meeting after dinner. Greg was already in the living room when I came down, legs stretched out, beer in hand. My sisters were on the couch pretending to watch TV, but clearly waiting for the show to start. Maya didn't waste time. "We need to talk about the imbalance in this house," she said, pacing in front of the coffee table like she was delivering a speech. "This family is being split down the middle, and you're the reason why." I blinked. "The reason why?" "Don't act clueless, Eric," she snapped. "You come back here acting like a guest in your own home. You bring your fancy gadgets, your expensive clothes, your private school attitude, and you make your sisters feel like they're less." Greg grunted in agreement. "You think you're better than everyone because you can string a few big words together. It's pathetic." Honestly, I felt my chest tighten, but I kept my voice steady. "I don't think I'm better than anyone. I'm just doing what I've worked for. That's all." Maya laughed, a short, bitter sound. "Worked for? Please. Everything you have is because your father throws money at you. The car, the trips, the private school. None of that's you. That's Connor buying you a life you didn't earn. I stared at her. I earned my scholarship. You know I did. Scholarship or not, you're still living in a world you didn't build, she said, crossing her arms. And it's tearing this family apart. Greg leaned forward, his eyes locked on mine. The girls look up to you, and all they see is someone who thinks he's too good to pick up a mop or babysit his own sisters. Maybe if you stopped acting like a prince, they'd feel like you were actually their brother. This is ridiculous, I said, trying to keep my tone calm. I'm here every holiday. I help when I can. I just don't live here full-time anymore. Exactly, Maya shot back. You're always halfway out the door, and I'm done letting that continue. So here's what's going to happen. She walked over and placed a sheet of paper on the coffee table. It was a printed schedule, chores, babysitting duties, part-time job applications. You're transferring to Westbridge High for senior year. It's a good school, and you'll be home where you belong. You'll do chores like everyone else. You'll babysit on Thursdays and Fridays when I'm working late, and you'll get a job, not some fancy internship, a real job, so you can learn what responsibility actually looks like. I stared at the paper, then at her. You're out of your mind. Greg slammed his beer down. Watch your tone. No, I said. I'm not transferring. I'm not quitting the debate team. I'm not giving up everything I've worked for so you can feel better about yourselves. Maya's expression hardened. So your sisters can feel like they're not worthless. You mean they're not worthless? I shot back. And me doing less won't make them more. You think this is negotiable? She said, her voice rising. This is not a request, Eric. It's an order. I am part of this family, I said, my voice rising to match hers. But I'm also building my future. I've earned everything I have. You're the ones who can't handle it. Greg stood up, towering over me. You're a spoiled brat. That's what you are. If it weren't for Connor's money, you'd be bagging groceries right now. Maybe that's what you need, a dose of reality. I stepped back. You don't know a damn thing about the work I've put in. Oh, we know, Maya said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. We know you love playing the prodigy. But newsflash, Eric, in this house, you're not special. You're just another kid who needs to pull his weight. This isn't about pulling weight, I said. It's about control. You want me to fail because you can't stand that I got out. The room went silent for a moment. Then Maya leaned in close, her voice cold. If you don't want to cooperate, that's fine. But don't be surprised when Northbridge starts asking questions about how your real financial situation looks. Don't be surprised if they reconsider giving you all those little perks. It felt like the air had been punched out of my lungs. What are you talking about? Maybe I'll give them a call, she said casually. Make sure they have all the accurate information. They take integrity seriously, you know. I stared at her. You wouldn't. She smiled, not kindly. Watch me. The argument ended with slammed doors and hours of silence, but the damage was done. I left the next morning without saying goodbye. I told myself it was just another one of her empty threats, that she'd cool down and drop it. I was wrong. 3 weeks later, an email from Northbridge landed in my inbox. A routine verification had been triggered. Maya had contacted the financial aid office, claiming Connor had been hiding assets and that I'd misrepresented our family's financial situation. She told them he was paying for a car, expensive trips, private tutors, luxuries that contradicted the need-based portion of my scholarship package. She even sent them screenshots of Venmo payments and photos she'd somehow dug up of me at nice restaurants. The school couldn't just ignore it. They had legal obligations. Scholarships come with integrity clauses, and any accusation of financial fraud triggers a mandatory review. Financial records were being examined. Guardianship documentation was being reassessed. Until the process was complete, I was barred from all extracurricular competitions, and my summer internship was on hold, not because they thought I was guilty, but because their liability insurance required it. Connor was livid when he found out. She did this, he said, pacing the kitchen. I don't care what she claims. This has her fingerprints all over it. I didn't argue. I didn't need to. Maya hadn't just made one phone call. She'd launched a campaign. She emailed the dean of students, the board of trustees, even the scholarship committee directly. She framed herself as a concerned mother who'd only recently discovered that her ex-husband was manipulating the system to cheat the school. The school couldn't prove it immediately. They had procedures to follow. My debate coach didn't bench me because he believed I was a fraud. He benched me because district policy required it. If I competed while under investigation and it later turned out the scholarship had issues, the entire team could lose funding. The internship pulled their offer for the same reason. They didn't think I'd done anything wrong. They just didn't want their name attached to a pending investigation. In their world, optics matter more than truth. There was only one person who would burn everything down just to prove she still had power. Liam was the first person I told outside the family. He listened quietly, then shook his head. "This isn't about family, Eric," he said. "It's about control, and she's not done yet." The audit wasn't even 2 weeks old when the first rumor hit. A classmate sent me a screenshot of a Facebook post from someone in my hometown. "He's finally coming home." Guess the fancy school wasn't so perfect after all. By lunchtime, the story had been reposted a dozen times. People were tagging each other, speculating about why I was leaving Northbridge, wondering if I'd been expelled or if my scholarship had been revoked. The source was obvious. Maya had been busy. I ignored it at first, hoping it would die out, but it didn't. The damage followed me into school. Teachers asked if I was transferring. My debate coach called me into his office to talk through my options. Even classmates I considered friends started treating me like a joke. "So, when's your big homecoming parade?" one of them asked in the cafeteria. Another leaned over during class and whispered, "Must be tough falling off the pedestal." The audit dragged on in the background, delaying everything that mattered. My recommendation letters for early admission were put on hold. My summer internship rescinded the offer until the financial discrepancies were resolved. The scholarship board stopped replying to my emails altogether. Connor was furious. He started calling lawyers, demanding that the school disclose who filed the complaint, but they refused. "It's confidential," they said. Standard procedure. We both knew who it was, but proving it would take time, and Maya was using every minute to tighten the knife. A week later, she joined the local PTA, a group she'd ignored for years, and started attending every meeting. She positioned herself as a concerned mother and launched into speeches about how some kids forget where they come from and how families are more important than prestige. Someone recorded one of her rants and posted it in local Facebook groups. Within hours, it had thousands of views across the county and neighboring towns. That was the day the nickname started. The Prince. At first, it was just a couple of sarcastic comments in local Facebook groups. Then it spread. People in my hometown started using it unironically. Someone made a photoshopped image of me in a crown, and it got shared around, not nationally, but enough that kids at Northbridge started seeing it. A few classmates even started calling me Your Highness when I walked by, half joking, half mocking. The worst part wasn't the jokes. It was the doubt. People who had once believed in me suddenly seemed uncertain. The school newspaper ran a piece questioning whether privilege disguised as merit was a problem at Northbridge. I felt my reputation slipping away piece by piece. Liam noticed the change before I did. "You're pulling back," he said one night. "You're quieter." "Every time I open my phone, there's another post, another rumor," I told him. "I'm not even me anymore. I'm just some story they're telling." The first real blow landed when a university postponed my interview until ongoing questions were resolved. Connor kept pushing forward with legal action, but deep down I knew this wasn't just about paperwork. This was about perception, about the story people told when they said my name. I wasn't just a student anymore. I was the prince, the spoiled kid who'd forgotten his roots. By the end of the month, one thing was clear. This wasn't going to stop. Maya had turned the town against me, and the damage was spreading faster than Connor's lawyers could contain it. The fallout started hitting harder than anyone expected. First, the internship, the policy consultancy I'd been chasing since sophomore year, sent a brief email saying they were reconsidering their candidate list due to ongoing administrative issues. It didn't take a genius to read between the lines. 2 days later, I was called into the debate coach's office. He looked uncomfortable, like he was about to fire someone. "Eric, this isn't about your performance," he said. "You're one of the best captains we've had, but with everything going on, the board thinks it's best if we have someone else lead the team until the situation's resolved." I nodded, said I understood, and walked out before he could finish his apology. I'd spent 3 years building that team, mentoring younger students, helping them win tournaments. And now I was benched, not because of anything I'd done wrong, but because of a story my own mother had set in motion. Back home, things were even uglier. Maya wasn't satisfied with ruining my reputation. She was determined to rewrite my sister's view of me too. During one visit, they refused to talk to me, calling me the spoiled one in Mr. Rich School. When I tried to explain, they just repeated phrases I knew weren't theirs. "You don't care about family. You think you're better than us." Maya stood behind them, arms crossed, a satisfied look on her face. "Don't look at me," she said when I confronted her. "I'm just telling them the truth. Maybe if you'd spent more time here instead of chasing status, they'd still see you as their brother." Connor kept records of everything and contacted his lawyer. Within a month, Maya escalated. She filed a complaint with Child Protective Services. She claimed Connor had alienated me from my family, that he was psychologically manipulating me, and that I was being encouraged to abandon my siblings. She painted a picture of a rich, absent father buying his son's loyalty while destroying family bonds. CPS doesn't just ignore complaints like that. They're legally required to investigate. A caseworker called me. They wanted interviews. They wanted to talk to my sisters. They wanted documentation of where I'd been living, who I'd been staying with, whether Connor was a fit guardian. The investigation lasted 6 weeks, 2 interviews, a home visit, questions that made me feel like I was defending my own father from accusations of abuse, when the only abuse happening was coming from the person who filed the report. The case was closed with no findings. The caseworker saw through it immediately and told Connor off the record that it was clearly retaliatory, but the damage was done. The complaint was public record. Maya made sure everyone in town knew about it. Connor Callahan under CPS investigation. That was the headline she wanted, and she got it. The fact that it was dismissed didn't matter. The stain stuck. A few weeks later, the audit finally cleared. The financial aid office found nothing wrong. Every document was accurate. Every number checked out. To officially close the case and restore my standing, Northbridge invited me to speak at the annual scholarship gala, a major donor event with alumni, faculty, students, and even some local press in attendance. I was supposed to give a generic thank you speech about gratitude and opportunity. I didn't. Instead, I told the truth. I didn't name Maya, but I talked about what happens when the people who are supposed to support you try to tear you down for succeeding. I talked about earning something through years of work and watching others try to take it away, not because you didn't deserve it, but because they couldn't stand that you did. I talked about the difference between family that lifts you up and people who just share your last name. The room went dead silent. Then someone in the back started clapping. Then everyone did. The speech was recorded. Official school footage was posted on Northbridge's YouTube channel as part of their donor outreach. Students shared it. Alumni forwarded it around. Within 48 hours, it had thousands of shares across local and school networks, across New England prep school networks and scholarship communities. For the first time in months, people were on my side. Maya didn't see it that way. Instead of reflecting on what she'd done, she doubled down. She posted on Facebook accusing me of lying to strangers and airing private family matters for attention. Greg joined in, calling me a spoiled brat trying to play victim. The posts only made them look worse, but they didn't seem to care. That's when I realized this wasn't about a misunderstanding or hurt feelings. They didn't want a relationship, they wanted control, and they were willing to burn everything down to get it. The more they lashed out, the clearer it became. They weren't just dysfunctional, they were toxic, and toxicity doesn't stop when you reason with it. It feeds on conflict, it thrives on reaction. Liam saw it. "You're still trying to save them," he said one night when I told him about the latest posts. "You keep thinking if you explain it right, if you show them the truth, they'll stop. But they won't. You're trying to save people who want to destroy you." He was right. I'd been clinging to the hope that this was fixable, that beneath the anger my family still cared, but the truth was staring me in the face. They didn't want to understand, they wanted to win, and they didn't care if they had to destroy me to do it. Then came the scholarship gala. It was the biggest night of the year at Northbridge, donors, faculty, alumni, and students all in one room. I was scheduled to give a short speech about student leadership. It was supposed to be a celebration of everything I'd worked for. Instead, Maya turned it into another circus. I don't know who screwed up the guest list, but somehow her name was on it. Maybe an outdated database still listed her as my guardian. Maybe someone in the alumni office didn't get the memo. Either way, she walked right through the door with a printed invitation. No one stopped her. I didn't see her until I was halfway through my speech. She was sitting in the third row, stone-faced, arms crossed, staring at me like I'd personally wronged her just by existing. I kept going. I talked about resilience, about the people who believed in me when it mattered most, about mentors who showed up when family didn't. I didn't say her name. I didn't have to. Everyone in that room knew the story by then. When I finished and stepped off the stage, she stood up, not to leave, but to confront me. She started walking toward the side exit where I was heading, and her voice carried across the entire ballroom. "You forgot to thank the woman who raised you." Security intercepted her before she got within 10 feet. She didn't fight them or make a scene. She just let herself be escorted out, muttering the whole way about ungrateful children and disrespect. The damage was already done. Every donor, every faculty member, every student in that room saw it. "Some people try to break you because they can't control you," I said into the microphone before I left the stage. "But you don't owe them your future." The room erupted in applause. By morning, the clip had thousands of shares, comments calling me the kid who stood up for himself. For the first time in months, I felt like I had the upper hand. Maya didn't take it well. Her behavior went from erratic to dangerous. She started calling my teachers, demanding to know what influence they had over me. She emailed my internship coordinator, accusing them of poisoning my priorities. She posted long Facebook rants claiming Connor had brainwashed me and that I was being manipulated by elitist institutions. The pressure on my sisters got worse. During a visit, one of them accidentally told a school counselor she was scared of making Mom angry like Eric did. Both girls were referred to therapy. Connor and I only found out because the school called him. One night, Maya snapped completely. According to Greg, she had been drinking and found an old box of my childhood photos. She smashed every frame against the kitchen wall, screaming that I was not part of this family anymore. The neighbors didn't just hear yelling, they heard my sisters crying, screaming for her to stop, begging her to calm down. One of them called 911. The cops showed up, took a report, and told Greg that if it escalated again, they'd have no choice but to call child services. It escalated again. 2 weeks later, Maya showed up drunk at the girls' elementary school, demanding to pull them out of class in the middle of the day. The principal called Greg. Greg called the police. That was the second incident report in 2 weeks. Greg didn't file for divorce because of one bad night. He filed because the pattern was escalating. The girls were having panic attacks. Their therapist had told him point blank, "This environment isn't safe anymore." The custody arrangement wasn't immediate or clean. At first, Maya was granted standard visitation every other weekend and alternating holidays, but she violated it almost immediately. She'd show up at the house at random times, call the girls 30 times a day, send long, unhinged text messages accusing them of turning against her like Eric did. Even her own lawyer told her to stop. She didn't. After 6 months of documentation, missed therapy appointments she was supposed to attend with the girls, violated court orders, 2 more police calls, the judge moved her to supervised visitation. Not because of what she'd done to me, but because of what she was doing to them. I found out about the divorce from Connor a few months later. He sat me down at the kitchen table and slid his phone across to show me the court order. "It's official," he said. "Greg has primary custody. Maya gets supervised visits twice a month, if she shows up sober." I stared at the screen for a long time. I thought I'd feel vindicated or relieved. Instead, I felt nothing. "It was always going to end this way," I said finally. And deep down, I knew it was true. "Your mother and I got divorced for one reason," Connor said. "Now you see it with your own eyes." Maya had spent years trying to control everything, my future, my image, my choices. And when she couldn't, she burned it all down. She lost her marriage, she lost her daughters. And in the process, she lost me. By the time the papers were signed, she was a ghost in my life, a cautionary tale instead of a parent. The family she'd claimed to protect was gone, scattered in different directions. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel trapped in her orbit anymore. I felt free. I turned 18, 2 weeks after the gala. It should have felt like any other birthday, but it didn't. It felt like a switch flipping, one that finally put control back in my hands. With the stroke of a pen, I signed the documents that made it official. I was an adult, legally independent. Maya no longer had any authority over my decisions. The first thing I did was change my address with Northbridge in every program I was part of. Every piece of mail, every official contact now went through Connor. I listed him and Liam as my emergency contacts and removed Maya's name from every form I could find. Then I blocked her. No more phone calls, no emails, no texts. I even changed my number and left the old one to rot. It wasn't an act of revenge, it was survival. I had spent too long reacting to her chaos. Now I was choosing silence. Blocking Maya didn't stop her. She emailed my professors claiming I was mentally unstable. She showed up at a debate tournament and got removed by security. She sent rambling letters to Connor's office about parental alienation. Eventually, the attempts spread out. A Facebook message every few months, a voicemail here and there, but they never fully stopped. She was still out there, still convinced she was the victim. The fallout from the divorce hit fast. Maya was ordered into mandatory therapy as a condition for supervised visitation. She told anyone who would listen that I had destroyed her family, blaming me for everything. I heard pieces of it from classmates. She'd show up at school board meetings ranting about elitism. Once she tried to give a talk about resilience at my old middle school. They kicked her out. The girls didn't speak to me either, not because they hated me, but because they didn't know how to process any of it. The last time I saw them, they stood behind Greg's leg at the courthouse, staring at the floor while Maya screamed at Connor across the hallway. It was the first time I'd seen fear on their faces. A few months later, Greg sent me an email. It was formal, almost painfully careful. I owe you an apology. I should have stepped in years ago. I should have protected you from the things she said. I failed you as an adult, and I regret that more than you'll ever know. I understand if you never want to speak to me again, but I want you to know I'm trying to be better for the girls. They deserve better. You did too. I read it twice, and didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I left it in my inbox as a reminder that people could change, but also that apologies didn't erase consequences. Life without Maya's interference felt strange at first. No angry messages, no rumors, just quiet, clean space. I threw myself into work. My internship was reinstated, my debate captainship restored, my recommendation letters were finalized, the momentum I'd lost started coming back, but the silence felt heavy. I'd cut out the noise and any illusion of family with it. Connor noticed. You built your life around managing other people's storms, he said one night. Now you're learning what it's like to have calm. It's space to build something better. He was right. Slowly, the silence became opportunity. I started saying yes to leadership programs, debate circuits, internship projects. For the first time, my decisions were mine alone. Meanwhile, Maya's world continued to shrink. The custody battle dragged on for months, and the judge eventually granted Greg permanent custody. She was given limited visitation under supervision, which she rarely used. Most people in town stopped speaking to her. PTA meetings stopped inviting her. Even the Facebook groups that used to echo her complaints banned her for harassment. I didn't celebrate any of it. I didn't feel triumph or satisfaction, just distance. By the time summer arrived, I was a legal adult, with a dorm assignment, a scholarship, and a clear path forward. Maya was just a name on paperwork I no longer needed to sign. The family I'd known was gone, replaced by something quieter, simpler, and stronger. One afternoon, Connor asked me if I wanted to stop by my old neighborhood before I left for college. I told him no, there was nothing left for me there. The house might still be standing, but the idea of home had burned down long before Greg packed his bags. I had no reason to look back. The past had taken enough from me already. It was time to move forward. 3 years passed before I heard from Greg again. By then, my life barely resembled the one I'd left behind. I was in my 3rd year of college, splitting my time between debate competitions, a policy research internship, and a small startup Liam and I had launched on the side. My name was no longer a punchline on small-town Facebook pages. Professors recommended me for fellowships. Recruiters sent emails. I had built something solid, a life that was mine. The email came late on a Tuesday night. The subject line was simple, a request. I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but the girls are 13 and 15 now. Real teenagers, not kids anymore. And they've been asking about you. They want to meet you. They want to know their brother, not the version they were told about. I understand if the answer is no, but I promised them I'd try. I read it 3 times before closing my laptop. I didn't reply immediately. The idea of seeing them again stirred something complicated. Not anger, not sadness, but a mix of both. Part of me wanted to leave the past where it was. Another part wanted to know if bridges could be rebuilt even after the fire. But I remembered they were just kids back then. They didn't know what was right and what was wrong. 2 weeks later, I agreed to meet. We chose a neutral place, a small cafe near the university campus. I arrived early and took a seat by the window. When they walked in, I almost didn't recognize them. They weren't the little girls, hiding behind Greg's legs at the courthouse anymore. They were teenagers, taller, older, and carrying the same nervous energy I felt. "Hi," one of them said, barely above a whisper. "Hi," I replied. The first few minutes were awkward. We talked about school, hobbies, classes, surface-level things. Greg mostly listened, only stepping in when the silence stretched too long. Finally, he cleared his throat. "I owe you more than an email," he said. "I failed you, Eric. I let resentment turn me into someone I'm ashamed of. I should have defended you. I should have spoken up, and I will regret that for the rest of my life. I don't expect forgiveness. I'm just asking for a chance to make things right for them." It wasn't a rehearsed speech. His voice cracked halfway through, and for the first time since everything had fallen apart, I believed he meant every word. The girls spoke next. They told me how they'd believed every word Maya fed them, that I was selfish, that I'd abandoned them, that I thought I was too good for family. They told me how confusing it was when Greg left, how therapy had helped them see that none of it was as simple as they'd been told, and they apologized, not once, but over and over. I didn't sugarcoat my response. "What happened hurt a lot, and I can't just forget it," I said, "but I don't hate you. I never did. You were just kids back then." I paused. "If we're going to build something, it has to happen slowly, on our terms. No guilt, no pressure." They nodded, both crying by then. Greg thanked me quietly. And just like that, something shifted. Not a full reconciliation, but the first fragile steps toward one. Over the next few months, we stayed in touch. They texted about school projects, watched my debate live streams. Greg came to one of my competitions. Later, they invited me to dinner, homemade pasta, and board games. It was the first time I'd sat at a table with them in years without feeling like I was on trial. Maya wasn't part of any of it. I heard she'd moved to another town, still blaming everyone but herself. I didn't care. Whatever she was doing wasn't my life anymore. What surprised me was how normal it felt once it settled in. No grand gestures, just steady moments rebuilding trust. They came to my debate finals. I visited for Thanksgiving. We talked about books, politics, stupid TikToks. One night after dinner, Greg walked me to my car. "I still don't expect forgiveness," he said. "But I hope one day you'll see me as more than the man who stood by and did nothing." "You're trying," I said. "That's what matters." It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was something. Standing there in the quiet, I realized that the word family no longer meant what it used to. It wasn't about shared blood or history. It wasn't about who raised you or who claimed you. It was about the people who showed up, the ones who owned their mistakes and chose to grow. Some people never do. Maya never would, and that was okay. Not every story needs a reconciliation. Some endings stay endings. But this was something new, a second chance, a beginning built on truth instead of guilt. As I drove away that night, I thought about everything that had happened. The sabotage, the humiliation, the silence, the rebuilding. It wasn't the family I'd imagined, but it was real. It was enough. Connor's life changed too. He left his old firm, started his own consulting company, and began seeing someone who treats him the way he deserves. We still talk every week, and he comes to every major event with that same calm pride. If anyone proved that family is about choice, not obligation, it's him. Some orbits collapse under their own weight. Others form anew. I didn't rebuild the family I lost. I built one worth keeping.